What is up? Welcome into Around the Felt. We got the divisional round recap. And what a week it was. Crazy as always. I'm your host, Reagan Loescher, here with my sidekick, co-host in training, Colin Tong.
Yeah, no, you know what, dude? We don't need to be taking jabs this early on in the pod.
No jabs, just the truth detected.
Ain't no fucking sidekick.
Hey, and that's what we bring you guys with the number one, superhero podcast out there. I'm the hero. He's the zero. But hey, jokes aside, it was a crazy weekend, brother. I mean, hey, you had the teams like the Chiefs and Eagles, big favorites getting it done. But then you have the Detroit Lions getting upsetted by the Commanders. Wow.
Yeah, it was a wild weekend of football. Some games went is about how you would expect. Others, shocking. And I think the big theme coming out of this weekend is the importance of turnovers, especially in these very important ball games. Every team that won this past weekend did not outproduce their opponent in terms of yardage during the game, but all four teams won. So, and you see those turnover battles really determining a lot of these games, and the defense is stepping up in a big way. So although the star quarterbacks are everly important, so is that pass rush and the secondary making plays. So it was a very fun weekend of football. I could say for myself, not looking forward to an all NFC East, NFC Championship game this weekend. Does not include my Giants, but hey, it's still, you got to tip the cap to the Commanders. To go on the road and beat the Detroit Lions is very impressive. And not just beating them, but the way they did it, where they really controlled that game and their offense just didn't look back. You got to tip the cap to the Eagles. I mean, they took care of business. Matthew Stafford and the Rams at the end there looked like they had a chance for the win. But hey, the defense stood tall, got it done with the legs of Saquon Barkley. Kansas City Chiefs, what do you expect? It's what they do at Arrowhead. The refs help them out maybe a little bit. It's been a big topic of conversation, but it's so difficult to beat Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce at this time of year. And, of course, the Bills holding on for dear life against the Ravens. Lamar played a pretty good game, but, hey, it was the turnovers in that game, which kind of screwed Baltimore. The fumble by Lamar, the fumble by Andrews really bit them in the ass. And, of course, a 2-point conversion. But wild game. And, we did pretty well in our picks this week too, Reagan.
Yeah. And, I wouldn't say Lamar played pretty good. I mean, we can get into that whole debate later, but I was not impressed. I mean, two very bad mistakes, like, stuff you see a rookie in like his debut making bad. And it is something to be noted. In the Lions Commanders game, the Commanders win that turnover battle 5-0. And in the Bills Ravens, they win it 3-0. And it's like, wow, those games are still that close with that many turnovers. So, you look at it and it's like, hey, a couple of these turnovers don't happen. We're probably looking at different outcomes in these games. And one more thing before we take a deep dive into it. We posed the hypothetical. If the Commanders are to get the win, is Jaden Daniels slide into that number 5 spot? I got to be a man of my word. He's number 5 for me now at this point. It might be a bit of an overreaction, but the way he played with all that poise and stuff, and it just seemed like every big fourth down they got it, except for the one where they decided they were going to just get way too cute with it and have Marcus Mariota fake the QB sneak and then pitch it back to Jaden Daniels. Like, I don't know about that. But for me, yeah, he is sliding into that number 5 spot. And, depending on how these playoffs go, I mean, we might be getting crazy with the overreactions and, putting him above maybe Lamar, maybe Burrow, maybe Allen. I mean, if they go out and win the Super Bowl, it's kind of hard to not give him flowers and, have the debate that he is better than any of those 3 guys I just listed.
Yeah, I think you're getting a little too big for your britches there. I don't think you can argue he's a better player than Lamar Jackson. Just because he did beat Detroit, an absolutely phenomenal win. I'm also going to slot him at that number 5 role, but, let's pump the brakes a little bit there. Another thing we talked about, Reagan, is, hey, what if Josh Allen does go out there and beat Lamar Jackson? And it looks like Lamar will be the MVP, but, I'm just curious to see what happens there.
Yeah, you know what I found amusing with all that? I mean, we posted on TikTok, and the amount of people that just didn't, and Instagram and all those platforms, the amount of people that are just responding, you guys do know they vote for the award before the season ends. It's like, yes, we do. We're just posing the hypothetical, like, will this change the fact? Like, we obviously know they already know who the MVP is, but it was funny the amount of people that were commenting that. And I'm like, these guys think we're just idiots. And, I guess we are. I mean, I would say if you're listening to this podcast, like, you must be really desperate to listen to football because we are definitely not smart people. Kidding.
Yeah, right. 100%, right?
Kidding? Are you kidding me? We literally had a guy on this podcast once go 16-0 in a week. What
Yeah,
what
that's
podcast?
facts.
Stephen A. Smith is not giving you that.
No, he's not. Let's get some news, though, Reagan. Some coaching news that broke down today. The Bears hiring Ben Johnson, their number one target, and presumably Caleb Williams' number one target. He did say last week on the St. Brown podcast that he would like an offensive-minded coach to grow with, which kind of pointed the Bears towards Ben Johnson or Mike McCarthy. It looks like Dennis Allen is the leader in the clubhouse to be the defensive coordinator for Ben Johnson.
Saw that.
Supposedly is between Lou Anarumo, who took the Colts defensive coordinator job. We'll get into that in a little bit. Between him and Dennis Allen, it looks like it's going to be Dennis Allen. I think that's a smart move on Ben Johnson's part, given the head coaching experience that Dennis Allen has. But, hey, the Bears get their guy, and the Raiders made a very strong push. It was reported that Ben Johnson spent a couple hours on Zoom with Tom Brady last weekend, just discussing things back and forth. And Tom Brady really wanted Ben Johnson in the building. But, hey, the Raiders don't have Caleb Williams. They don't have an answer at the quarterback position. And you could sell them on all you want to go to a division with Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and now Bo Nix and not have a quarterback. It's tough. At least you could sell that with Chicago, where it's like, yeah, you got Detroit, you got Minnesota, you got Green Bay, but at least you have supposed to be a star quarterback on a rookie deal.
Yeah, and I would also say, the decision becomes more clear, and you got to think it's a factor for Ben Johnson. The fact that the AFC is so deep at the quarterback position, and you look at all those teams, and you're like, you got to go through Patrick Mahomes, you got to go through Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. You'd expect Joe Burrow to get better, Justin Herbert on the come up. I mean, CJ Stroud. Say what you want about the Texans. They've been a playoff team the past 2 years. So there's so many guys where you look at the NFC right now and you're like, I don't even know if there's a clear guy for the top quarterback in the NFC, if there's a clear team right now. But if I'm a coach and I'm looking at a couple different teams and it's like, all right, what's the deciding factor? It's probably like, what's an easier path in the short term to success? And I would say, go take a job in the NFC right now, because there's, a couple good teams right now, but even those good teams, it's not like they have the juggernaut quarterback. Because you look at the Eagles, like, yes, Hurts is good, and I'm a big Hurts guy, but he's not the level of some of those AFC quarterbacks. Same with Goff. Jaden Daniels, he may already be the best NFC quarterback right now, but still he's not the same tier as those top quarterbacks in the AFC.
Stafford's 36. You know what I mean? His time's
exactly.
almost done, and the Rams have been one of the most dangerous teams when you get to the postseason the last couple years because of his experience. That could be gone. And then what do the Rams look like? Because Sean McVay's already teased retirement before. Like, maybe he doesn't want to go through a whole nother rebuild. So there's a lot less teams you're really competing with. It just so happens that the division that you're still in is the best division. I mean, can you even say the NFC's got 2 teams left though, but they don't have a dead horse like the Giants, I guess, anymore, with Ben Johnson taking over, hopefully in Chicago.
Yeah. Plus to me, it's, it just seems like the NFC right now is like a place where you can go from, I mean, we just saw it this year with the Commanders, but a place where you can go from like one of the worst teams in the league to a playoff team in 1 year. Like, there's a couple teams I'm looking at right now in the NFC where I'm like, they're probably going to be in the playoffs next year, or at least be like deep in the wild card hunt come the end. Like, the Panthers are a team that really excites me next year. Let's not forget about the 49ers. Like, even the Bears, like, I could totally see them. So those are 3 of the 4 teams that finished dead last. I'm sorry I can't give your Giants the same flowers, but those are 3 of the 4 teams in the NFC where I wouldn't be shocked if their wild card teams are even winning their division next year. So it just shows you like how open the NFC is in the future.
100%, man. And speaking of Lou Anarumo, he does take the Colts defensive coordinator position. I mean, they were talking about this on the New Heights show, and Travis Kelce was like, I don't know what they're doing over there. Clearly, Cincinnati did not have the horses that they have had in previous years, and we've talked about that all season, where Lou is a great coach, but you depleted that defense because you started paying Joe Burrow and you started building up that offensive line and, not necessarily drafting it. Like, yeah, you got Amarius Mims this year, but they were signing a ton of high-paid guys on that offensive side of the ball, lost out in their defensive leadership outside of Trey Hendrickson, and they couldn't really stop a nosebleed this year. But Lou gets a job with the Colts, who their defense struggled under Gus Bradley. They clearly have some issues that they need to figure out, and that defense has not really been that good the past several years, like 4 or 5 years. So I think this is a good hire for him. We'll see, though, because this is a situation, Indy, where if that's another bad year next year, they could clean house and Lou's looking for another job.
Yeah. I don't know, because he's just obviously such a good name. But like you said, I mean, they didn't have a lot of talent on that Bengals defense. I mean, obviously Trey Hendrickson, beast, probably going to win the DPOY this year. Outside of that, a lot of their big names left because they couldn't afford them. And like you said, I mean, they've been putting so much money and capital into the offense, it's going to hurt. So, yeah, I'm not surprised he got picked up. That Indianapolis, move is interesting. I still do like the Colts. I mean, let's not forget, this year they were pushing for the playoffs. Last year they had a win and get in game in week 18 against the Texans on Saturday Night Football. So, this is a team that's on the cusp of making the playoffs the past 2 years. I do think he can, take that defense with a lot of talent there, especially their D-line. They have a very underrated defensive line over there to the next level. Because even Latu Latu, he didn't have a crazy rookie year, and there really was no crazy rookie this year. I mean, Jared Verse really came on at the end, but he still only had 4.5 sacks this year.
Braden Fisk actually led the rookies in sacks with, I believe, 7.5 or 8.5.
Yeah.
On the same D-line as Verse.
Exactly. So I wouldn't say there was any clear cut steal the draft or not steal the draft. That's not the word I'm looking for, but guy that just
premier
came
pass
in and
rusher.
dominated. Yeah, premier pass rusher. So and I think Latu could still develop. So there's a lot of exciting young names on the team. So I'm interested to see what they can do. I mean, ultimately that Colts team comes down to Anthony Richardson, but it would be nice if the defense obviously factors in more and isn't allowing 45 points to the New York Giants on a must-win game.
Yeah, they need some help on the back end. That's for sure. They've got pretty solid linebacker play.
Yes.
I like, Buckner's still there, that leader, but, he's starting to get sick of things. It seems like an Indy.
Zaire Franklin's a beast as well.
Yeah, Zaire Franklin's a beast, EJ Speed, so they do have some talent, right? But they do need more on the back end, I think, for sure, and some more juice up front. But that wraps up our news. Where's Drock?
There we go. There's the cue. Drock's got 2 announcements. First, let's give it up for Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and the Republican Party for getting inaugurated today, baby. Let's go. Come on.
Yeah, me and Colin both voted for Kamala. So you could.
I know damn sure that my fucking roommate did not vote for Kamala. Second, boys, the wheel smacked this weekend. We're hot in the playoffs.
Jalen Hurts, baby. Some people have been barking in our DMs about the picks we give out. I'm like, hey, buddy, we're spinning a goddamn wheel. The wheel, it gets hot, it gets cold. It happens, right? First touchdown scores, very volatile, very difficult to project. But you know what? We're heating up at the right fucking time.
I will say I did notice this year when it comes to the wheel, and it's not even our spins. It seemed like last year there were a lot more big names hitting. It's been very chalky this year, where a lot of times we don't hit, but it's the guy who it ended up being was plus 300 or plus 400. And to me, it's yeah, that's great and all, but that doesn't really do anything for me. So it was we just didn't hit on those big whales that we hit last year. But honestly, they didn't happen a lot in general. Most of the games, even this week, I think Bateman was the highest odd guy, and he was plus, I think, 1,200, and the rest of them were plus 600 or less that ended up hitting. So it wasn't it was a crazy odds week. So Vegas is adjusting. So next year, we won't even put the top guys on it. We'll just put all the big kahunas on there. And Vegas is all right, now they're starting to figure this out. Then we're going to go up big.
Yeah. When the books adjust, we adjust right back.
I love it. All right. 3 questions tonight from Drock's friend, Dave Kurzrock. Let's dive into them.
Yeah. Thanks for submitting, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. If you're listening right now, you could have submitted. That would have been awesome. I don't just
not like most of us Americans had an off today for Mr. Martin Luther King, but whatever.
I did not, because the show business never stops. Word.
All right. First question Dave's got for us. Was this loss for the Bills and Ravens game more about the Ravens' mistakes or about the Bills' strong execution?
Ravens' mistakes, 100%. I mean, Lamar Jackson doesn't throw that insanely bad interception. I don't know where he was throwing to. And I will give Matt Milano some credit. I mean, getting him back, that pass rush was great. He did force Lamar into throwing it earlier. But even then, a veteran quarterback sees that and just throws it away. Just throw it out of bounds. You obviously were throwing it in the area of Bateman, so that was bad. And then obviously Linderbaum has the bad snap, and you are athletic. You do make the recovery, but instead of once again throwing it away, making the veteran play, you try to do too much. And I know the kickback will be, well, it's Lamar Jackson. He does those kind of things. You got to take it when he has the spectacular plays, and that's one of the risks you have, because he will take those risks. Sometimes it'll burn you, but more often than not, he will make a great play from there. It just happened that it didn't work out that way. And then obviously the Andrews bad fumble that hurt. And, a lot of people want to point to the 2-point conversion, but, those 3 crucial turnovers are really where the game was lost, because you're never going to win a game when you lose a turnover battle 3-0.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could argue with you, but I can't here. This is certainly the Ravens. I mean, you look at what the Bills did on offense. They really didn't do much. Like, Josh Allen was pretty held in check, only threw for $127, only had 20 yards on the ground on 10 carries. He did have 2 touchdowns, but, they were short yardage, obviously. James Cook ran for 67, and you look at that against the Baltimore Ravens, like, you know what? That's pretty solid for given what they did all season. It's not like the Bills did anything spectacular, and that's what kind of, I think the consensus is from NFL media today is like the Bills took a script out of the Chiefs game plan where it's play really good defense, let the other team beat themselves, right? And make plays when you have to. And I kind of feel like that's what happened here. Reagan already highlighted the turnovers. I mean, yeah, you can't make those type of mistakes. And it's like even the Mark Andrews turnover, and I know a lot of people are bashing Mark Andrews right now, and it's tough because he's been a really good player in the league for a long time. Just, he just didn't do what he had to do at the end of the game there, but they had a lot of momentum at the end of the game that they gave away, and it really, really screwed them. And even that ball that Andrews dropped, like, Lamar could have thrown a better ball there too, right? Like, it's tough. Like, he clearly, like, it's hard to know where you are on the field when you're going towards the pylon, and such a big moment, and he's getting turned around. The ball's a little behind him, like a better ball right in his front shoulder. And we don't have this conversation. And, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe the Bills would have went down and kicked a field goal and it wouldn't have mattered. The game would have been over. But yeah, I mean, this is certainly more on the Ravens' mistakes, I think, than the Bills, like, taking control and really dominating this game. That's just not how I saw it.
One thing I find amusing, and it's not you guys as Giants fans, but it's my other friends that are Giants fans. They're the biggest Jalen Hurts haters, and they're like all crapping on him for his performance in the game against the Rams. He obviously had the big rushing touchdown, but then as a passer, they didn't need him to do much. He did exactly what they asked.
Also, snowing out,
very similar stat line to Josh Allen.
It was,
but, everybody's like, oh, Josh Allen, and then they're like all giving him his flowers and stuff, and I'm like, huh. So we're just shitting on Jalen Hurts for putting up a very, like, middle of the pack stat line where, he had the rushing touchdowns. And then you're giving Josh Allen his flowers, who Josh Allen didn't have a passing touchdown either, had the same amount of passing yards. And yeah, he did have one more rushing touchdown. But funny enough, one of the biggest things people crap on Jalen Hurts for is the tush push touchdown. But then Josh Allen does it, and it's not an issue. So I find that very funny. I'm not saying that Josh Allen's not better. He is 100% better. He is a better quarterback. But it is funny that people look at it and they're like, oh, like, Jalen Hurts did nothing. Like, the Eagles won this game with or without him. And it's like, oh, well, you can say the same thing for the Bills this week. Josh Allen didn't win him this game. The Ravens just lost that game.
Yeah. Another controversial question that has been in this league for quite some time now. Are quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes getting too much protection from the refs?
This has been a big thing, and it's even the guys in the booth that are kind of commenting on it. Like, come on, that's not a flag. Like, you got to penalize Mahomes for that. I mean, he's exposing the loopholes in the rule, right? He's smart. And say what you want about it. I don't like it. I don't think it's good for the game, but Mahomes is going to take advantage of it as much as he can until he gets absolutely popped and they don't flag it, right? Like, or until they change the rule. He's exposing a loophole. Yeah, it's not good football. I don't like it. It reminds me of basketball with the flopping, where it's like, they still have, basketball still has a problem with it, right? So it's difficult to make it stop, I guess, at this point, but certainly people are starting to take notice where, like, hey, now it's way too obvious. And I saw that over the past several games, like the Chiefs, they have over 600 yards in penalties awarded to them, while the flip side of the coin is the refs have only called 300 and change against the Chiefs. So there's clearly a discrepancy there, and I don't think it's that the Chiefs are that more disciplined than every other professional team.
Yeah, they're just getting the benefit. I mean, I would think it's a quarterback issue in general, and I think it just comes down to which quarterbacks are stars and which ones aren't. Because, depending on who the quarterback is, it definitely changes or not if you call the whistle. I think that's a very evident.
We've seen it with backup quarterbacks, dude. Backup quarterbacks will get fucking popped, and you're not calling anything.
Yeah,
but if it's that star power, then you're gonna get the calls.
Yeah, so that's a bad thing. I know Mahomes tends to slow down when he's about to go out of bounds, trying to almost bait them into a late hit. So I think that's bad. But honestly, like, I can't knock him. Like, if they're going to call it, you might as well expose it. It's on the league to really step in and enforce it. I don't think anything will change this year, but I think they'll make a more conscious effort. And I would have thought, honestly, like, after that Kenny Pickett fake slide when he was at Pitt in college, I would have thought that would have been like a big like emphasis on, hey, like, these guys are trying to hold back, but then these quarterbacks are exposing it. So I would have thought after that happened, the league would have done, and that's not even in the NFL, that's in college football. But I would have thought for sure after that happened, they would have even like, all right, well, this can be an issue in our game. And I think they did. There is a penalty if you do a fake slide in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken. But still, something has to change, and something will change. I think this will definitely be one of the hot league meeting controversy talk about points in the offseason for sure.
And Mahomes will also like do that tiptoe on the sideline where he's trying to draw a penalty, but we've also seen him just turn it up the sideline and get an extra 30 yards,
Yeah.
So it's like, as a defender, what are you going to do? You're going to pop him, and you're probably going to get flagged because the Chiefs will cry about it, and Mahomes will throw his arms up in the air and get the call. You can't just let him stay inbounds because he's showing he'll fucking take it down the sideline. So
yeah,
it's a really weird gray area for defenders where you're in the heat of moment in a playoff game. Could be a big moment in the second half, and that comes up, and it's like, what do you do?
Yeah. No, it's something needs to change.
Off of that question, should coaches be able to challenge penalties like roughing the passer?
We had this debate after they let you challenge PIs, and then it got to a big gray area. Like, okay, well, what is PI? What is not? And then you're stopping the game too much. And that's why I love like the expedited reviews where you can speed up the game, right? And that's the problem with like basketball again, is like the game stops too much. There's not much flow momentum. You want to keep that flow momentum, but with the penalties, then it's a question of what penalties can be challenged and what cannot. I think some of the roughing the passers are fucking bullshit, and those I think fall in the category of if you can challenge, they should be. But we did experiment with that with the pass interference, and I guess it didn't really go as planned for the NFL. So I don't see him going back to reviewing penalties anytime soon.
I think they could get away with it. Like, I think they should try to. I mean, it's working out in the NBA very well. I mean, it's definitely, saving some late game situations where it's like, hey, that just decided the game. And I know, everyone always says like, yeah, a game's not decided in one possession. It's a full game. And that is true. But at the end of the day, when, it's under a microscope more and the drives get more valuable as the game goes on, it comes down to like these big calls that can sway a game either way. And if a roughing the passer call gets called and, ends up leading to a team getting more yardage, and you can go challenge it and change the game. And it's like, hey, like, they just called a roughing the passer. The game's over now because we had no more timeouts, and that's on 3rd and 10, and you just gave them a first down to end the game. It's like, hey, we just challenged it. Now we're not getting screwed over by the ref trying to do too much. So I would like to see it be implemented. Maybe it depends on the penalty because like, like a false start and stuff, but also, maybe one a game and it's like you don't get it back no matter what. You only get one a game. I don't know. They'd have to figure it out, but I definitely would almost like to see it as more of something different than a challenge, and it's like a penalty. It's like its own entity or something.
One last question before I head out. Predictions for tonight, spread-wise, and money line if you're dabbling that way.
Notre Dame, Ohio State. We're recording on Monday, so the game's going to kick off in about an hour and a half from our current point right now, and I think Ohio State wins, but I'm rooting for the Irish, and I'm sprinkling on the Irish money line at plus 300. The luck of the Irish, baby.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it to really say. I mean, I lean Ohio State money line and spread. I feel like they'll just dominate them here. I haven't been overly impressed by Notre Dame, where it seems like Ohio State's been steamrolling. And also from like a talent perspective, I look at the two teams and I go, hey, this one team in Notre Dame, like they may have a couple guys drafted next year where, hey, Ohio State, all like half these guys are going to be day 1 and day 2 picks. And the other half, they'll be day 1, day 2 picks by the time they're eligible to be drafted. So it's just from a talent perspective, I think it's unmatched. And, I wasn't overly impressed watching Riley Leonard against Penn State. And Ohio State obviously owns Penn State, so I'd imagine they'll give him those same fits that he went through. But I will say that Notre Dame running back, was it Julian Love?
Jeremiah Love.
Oh, Jeremiah Love. That guy's sick.
He's
and
probably RB1 in the 2026 NFL draft.
Yeah. And I saw a clip of him like slow motion on that like 2-yard touchdown where he just like got past Penn State defenders, also getting past Abdul Carter twice on the run, which was incredible too. It's like, speaks to, hey, good on Carter for not giving up, but it was just like, wow, this guy's like a whole nother level. So I guess that's a name that you should be looking out for in your dynasty drafts 2 years from now.
Jeremiah Love, 100%. And also hit that hurdle that he had, and he has a bad knee. He hurdled off his left leg. He's got a bad right knee and landed on his left and fully jumped over a dude. So that's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I know this won't matter because by the time people listen, the game's already done. But we can look back on it. I think the main matchup to watch for tonight and how the night's going to go is those Notre Dame corners against those Ohio State wide receivers. Ohio State is the number one man beating team. I mean, look at their receiving core. It's disgusting. Notre Dame runs man coverage the most of any team in college football, and their corners have held up. Clearly, that's why they're here, right? So that's going to be a thing I'm watching for. Notre Dame's offense is going to be Riley Leonard and Jeremiah Love. Hopefully, Jeremiah Love a week later is feeling better with his knee so that he can get some more touches, but it's going to be that run game. If Ohio State can stop that run game and make Riley Leonard beat you with his arm, it's going to be a long night for the Irish. All right, Reagan, that wraps up the questions. Thank you, Drock. Very much appreciated, my friends. Before we dive into these games, we'll do the picks. Reagan, you actually did not do too hot against the spread. You went 1-3 against the spread.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that because of the it's tough because it's like, depending on the day we recorded, it could have gone differently because the lines were shifting so much. I would have closed at 6.5 and 8.5 or whatever.
Well, what screwed you was Houston, right? So when we recorded, we took an 8-point spread. It actually moved up to 9.5. And then with the late safety that the Chiefs took, Houston covered the 9.5. They did not cover the 8. So
yeah,
that's
what I was
kind
saying.
of screwed you there. You know what I mean? So it's all a timing thing. But hey, this is the cadence that we've kept the past 2 seasons.
Yeah.
We lock them in. That's what we're taking. So you were comfortable with Houston +8. You can't complain now. You went 3-1 money line, though, with that Commanders upset pick, your big win. You did take Baltimore, so that was tough. 2-point loss. Could have went your way there, too. I went 3-1 against the spread. Eagles lost for me. That was the only one because they won by 6. We had 6.5.
Yeah, same thing, yeah.
And then I lost Detroit money line. So I did have the commies to cover, but had Detroit money line there. Heartbreaker for me. My champ is done. My future's done.
Oh, wow. Are we gonna get a redo bracket? Come on, give us a redo bracket. Please give us a redo bracket.
No,
please, bro.
No.
Please. Come on.
No one needs to see a redo bracket. I mean, my redo bracket will be this weekend. You know what I mean? So,
bro, who's your new pick?
Dude, I'm still undecided because I had Kansas City in the Super Bowl from the start, but I think I have to stick with it. But I'm gonna be rooting for Buffalo 100%, and I'm rooting for the Commanders. I'm rooting for the command. What I think happens is Eagles Chiefs. What I want to happen is Bills Commanders.
So what's the pick?
Well, I don't know. I gotta do my research.
Your head, Drock, go over there and bring.
What are we spoiling? We're spoiling Wednesdays or Thursdays pod now.
All right,
is that what we're trying to do?
If that's what you want to hold out to. You can do it.
All
I'm saying is I wouldn't even know what it would be like to do a second bracket or have to pick a second champ. Couldn't even fathom having to go through that. So, buddy, best of luck to you. But I don't know where you're coming from. Don't know if I'll ever know where you're coming from. But.
Dude, you're I mean, it's funny because you did do a second bracket last year with your Browns. And that second bracket, I think you had like the Packers winning it, and then they just lost. So, I mean, I could have fucking busted your balls for a third bracket last year at this point, but I didn't. I knew you were suffering enough already. You should know I'm a little upset that my futures are done. Could have won some big money off some free bets. Now I can't.
Oh,
and he's kicking me when I'm down. I don't need no second bracket. I understand my champ's out.
Yeah, that actually sucks. I'm sorry. Honestly, you know what? If I were, wherever you bet that on, I would just give you your money back because you're a good guy. So
yeah,
how does that sound?
ESPN.
I'll be like, hey, so this Disney princess over here wants a refund on his bet.
It was a free bet. I'm not getting any refunds. They were free bets anyways.
Yeah, so
it's all right. All right, let's get into the first game, Reagan. The Kansas City Chiefs, of course, take care of the Houston Texans 23-14. It was a tight game in the first half, but the Chiefs defense really held their own all day. Mahomes threw for 177, a touchdown, not super sexy, but got the job done. Kareem Hunt. Oh, Reagan, I know you were big on Pacheco.
Oh, man.
Hunt scored the touchdown, had 44. Pacheco, 5 carries for 18 yards. Do they just like Kareem Hunt's game better than Pacheco's? Or is Pacheco clearly still beaten up?
He might just suck now, to be honest. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, he might just be bad now. It's possible.
I was at Luke's and everyone was like, everyone gets in the labs, everyone starts crafting, we're all talking, and Pacheco was getting a lot of love to score, and I was like, I'm staying away from the Chiefs running back room because I don't know what Andy Reid's thinking. You think Pacheco's definitely a better player than Hunt's, but Hunt's been like it's not even like Hunt's playing really well. He's just like slightly less bad than Pacheco's been.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It hurts.
And really what also hurts is, I had Kelsey 60 yards straight at plus money. I was like, you know what? Travis Kelsey in the playoffs, it's inevitable. We saw it happen last year. He was terrible all season. Postseason comes on. Lights get brighter. Taylor Swift back up in the press box. He goes off. What'd he do? 7 for 117 and a touchdown. I was pissed at myself. I didn't take Kelsey to score. I took Xavier Worthy, who got tackled at the inch yard line. But he did have 5 for 45. Another solid day for Worthy. The number one receiver now in Kansas City, it seems like, Reagan, right? D-Hop, 1 target, no catches. Hollywood Brown, 2 targets, no catches. Juju, 1 target, no catches. Not that he was up there, but, I mean, it was Hunt with a reception, Noah Gray with 3, Worthy with 5, Kelsey with 7.
Yeah, no, and, going back to that Taylor Swift up in the box thing, I'm not one for controversy in politics, but
that's the one thing you wanted to go back to?
Well, I just basically want to say, like, one thing that sticks out to me is
I know you have a crush on Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark's up there. Taylor Swift's up there. The Chiefs win. Then on the Eagles side of the things, where's Taylor Swift from originally? Philadelphia.
Oh, now Kylie Kelsey's all famous.
Who's a part of it now? Kylie Kelsey, Jason Kelsey. Oh, what's good for ratings? The NFL. Oh, and what a good way to announce that the NFL is going to be starting a women's league by pushing the number 1 women's athlete right now with Caitlin Clark. So I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I'm not going to get political with it. But all I'm saying is, if you follow the breadcrumbs, it tells me it's going to be an Eagles Chiefs Super Bowl, because that gives them a week in between to promote it all, like 2 weeks to promote all the new things. And at the Super Bowl, the camera is going to be cutting to Jason. It's going to be cutting to Taylor Swift. Caitlin Clark will be all up in that box as well. You have to imagine that. So it's just so many different agendas that can be pushed for these big cats to make more money. So I don't know. I'm just following the breadcrumbs. I don't want to get burned by it. So I'd rather, make a little cheddar by taking the exacta with the Chiefs and the Eagles. All I'm saying. Don't shoot the messenger, just a message I'm putting out there.
That's getting clipped, Reagan. Fucking love that.
Follow the breadcrumbs. Chiefs, Eagles. Reagan's telling you, put your house, put your life, put your mortgage, put your salary on a Chiefs, Eagles moneyline parlay this weekend.
Yeah, and it's not. It's like it. Just take out the football part of it. Just follow the breadcrumbs. Like, I'm not telling you to be like Sherlock Holmes out here, but I mean, it just makes too much sense. Just follow the conspiracy. Take football out of this. This has nothing to do with football, and it also works out that it's like, Josh Allen, maybe he'll get it done this time. He won't. Oh, Jaden Daniels, this whole new toy, this flashy newcomer, great storyline, America's sweetheart upsetting America's other sweetheart in the Lions. Like, it's all coming together for the little conspiracy theory. But at the end of the day, what'll make the NFL the most money? And that's that scenario. So follow the money.
Yeah, maybe that's why the refs are bailing out Mahomes so much. But back to the football side. For Houston, Stroud, 245, no touchdowns, no picks. I thought he looked all right. I mean, he got sacked 8 times, Reagan. I brought up on last week's pod. I was like, I'm very curious to see how that offensive line holds up with Steve Spagnuolo and what he's gonna scheme up. 8 sacks. You could point to that being a big reason they lost this game. They can complain about the refs all they want. You can't get sacked 8 times against the defending champs and expect to win in Arrowhead.
Yeah. I mean, that. Special teams was bad. And also, did you see that clip of one of the special teams guys fucking chucking his helmet
and then pushing his
coach? Yeah, like, right then and there, it's been like, yeah, this is how you lose it. Losing your cool like that. That is not good for the vibes. I mean, you rarely see that on the Kansas City side. Actually, you did see Travis Kelce the one time push Andy Reid. Kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, I knew that was a bad thing. I mean, I wasn't necessarily overly impressed with Stroud. I mean, he definitely played better than I thought he would. I mean, I knew he was going to throw a lot of passing yards, but I really thought Kansas City would dominate this more. But they really didn't. But then again, who cares? Like, Detroit dominated all year, and then when it mattered, they didn't dominate. And it's also funny, like, they still haven't scored over 30 points, but they're here. They're still taking care of business. So I think when it comes to Kansas City, who cares how they win it? They're just going to win it. Like this week against Buffalo, it probably isn't going to be the prettiest game, but they're just going to find a way and they'll get it done. Like I am not, if you're asking me who I'm taking, I can't pick against Kansas City. And I can't trust that Josh Allen will get it done because he never has. Because regular season really doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. Back to Houston. Mixon at 88 yards and a touchdown. A good game for him. Stroud even had 42 rushing yards. I was shocked with that. That was a bet getting floated around. Stroud 30 yards at like plus 400. I was like, dude, no way.
Take it?
No. But he had that 28-yard run early on. I was like, oh, shit. Stroud with his legs, We were
Whose idea was that?
I think it was Ryan's. Rylu's.
All right, Ryan.
Shout out around the octagon.
Yeah, no, Ryan. I mean, I will happily do a trade for you. If you're putting out picks like that, I will trade my co-host for you. He can go join the Octagon Boys, and it'll be the R&R Jets talk.
Yeah, no one wants to hear that. Nico was pretty solid in this game, but hey, my question for you is, what do the Texans have to address this offseason to get over the hump? They've been here.
Line for sure.
You're right. It's got to be the offensive line. They need more help there because you have the weapons. I don't think Diggs will be back. The defense was really good. They were top 10 against the pass and the run. You do have some stars over there, young stars, Will Anderson, Derek Stingley. I love Jalen Petrie. I mean, you do got some Daniil Hunter, right? You got some guys. So I think it's just they're sneaking into that same bucket of Baltimore and Buffalo where they're not as established as those two teams yet, but they're getting up there where it's like perennial playoff team, can't get over the hump of Patrick Mahomes, right? Can't climb that mountain.
Well, yes, but I think Stroud needs to take another step as well. I mean, he needs to get to a whole nother level because they can make all the right moves, but I don't think it matters if Stroud doesn't take a whole nother step up because he's great right now. Yeah. Or I wouldn't even say he's great. He's good. I mean, right now, if you're asking me, like he's probably a top 10 quarterback, I'd say, right around
that's
that,
great. That's great.
8 to 12 mark. I wouldn't say it's great. I'd say he's good. I mean, to me, there's like elite and then there's great. And I'd say he's just good. I wouldn't consider him great yet.
So who would you consider great that's not elite?
I would say, Jaden Daniels is great. I would say Justin Herbert is great. I would say Jalen Hurts is great. I would say Matthew Stafford is great. I mean, I would not put Stroud in the conversation with those guys. There's probably a few more. Like even Baker Mayfield, I'd say is great. But I would just say Stroud is good. I mean, can he become great? Sure. But I think he still has to take another step to put him above it. I mean, you'd like to see him take like a major step, but right now they can make all the right moves, and I still don't care how good the roster is on paper.
Yeah, I mean, 2 playoff wins in 2 years is definitely something you're pretty happy about if you're a Texans fan because he's getting battle tested very early on. He's showing that he can win playoff games. It's just taking that next step, and that's a conversation that we're going to hear about Lamar Jackson all offseason, how he fell short again, and it's just sometimes it takes time for these really good quarterbacks to finally get over the hump.
And I'm not trying to take away from the Texans, but people will be like, well, Justin Herbert doesn't, have any playoff wins. It's like, yeah, fair. But, Justin Herbert also is playing in the AFC West where, no matter how good that the Chargers teams are, they're not winning the division. So they're not getting that first round bye. So I think that a lot of the Texans' success can be credited to the fact that their division has been so bad the past 2 years. I mean, think about it. The Titans and Jaguars are picking both in the top 5. And then the Colts, like even them, they had a good year, but they lost to some bad teams this year. So and even like going into next year, like the way the Colts are trending down. So like, they can make all the right moves. They'll probably be in a similar spot where they're the 4, maybe even the 3 seed next year. They'll probably win their first playoff game, but then they're going to be in the same boat. So, he may be, a wild card merchant over the next couple of years where the Texans are
merchant.
Playing in the wild card weekend, they're getting it done because they're getting that first round home playoff game, and then they go against the team that's like actually a whole nother level above them, but they're just a benefactor of a bad division.
100%. Let's move over to the NFC here, Reagan. The Washington Commanders pick up their 14th win of the season, go on the road and beat the number 1 seed Detroit Lions 45-31. Jaden Daniels, 299, 2 touchdowns, no picks, did not get sacked once. And when you actually watch Jaden Daniels, it's like his pocket awareness, his poise, his eyes are constantly downfield. He feels the pressure. It's so hard to tackle him with how fast he is. But then he'll still plant and set and make a phenomenal throw. He doesn't even need to beat you with his legs. Oh, but what he can do is run for 51 yards as well with ease, right? Like it's crazy. He played so well. Brian Robinson had 2 touchdowns, 77 rushing yards. Yeah, you were all over Brian Robinson in this one. And
I too bad I didn't clip that one, huh? It was like, 35 minus 120, and I just kept rattling it off. He was like plus 1,000 for 80 yards. He did only have 77, but crazy that like something as low as that total had that kind of value. So a lot of people were giving Detroit their flowers to casuals. I got a lot of like flack from some of my buddies listening. They're like, yeah, like Detroit's like just like Tampa Bay's run defense. I'm like, yes, they were, but Tampa Bay's got a Vita Vea who's healthy and a lot of other guys around him, where Detroit has a lot of injuries. So it's not the same Detroit defense that was top 5 against the run all year.
Yeah, the Detroit defense. Now, granted, they deserve some slack. Like, 45 points at the board is disgusting, right? But, Goff had the terrible fumble. He had the pick turnovers. 6. He had 2 picks, and then Jameson Williams threw a pick, right? 5 turnovers is tough. So 45, ugly. Even if they had 3 turnovers, that pick 6 negated, it's still not great, but it's not as ugly as 45. So, and, I thought it was ironic that De'Ami Brown, who Amon-Ra St. Brown brought up in an interview a couple years ago. Who the hell is this guy? I mean, clearly Amon-Ra St. Brown's a better player, and he did outproduce De'Ami Brown in this game. Amon-Ra had 8 for 137. That was my call for most receiving yards this week. What happened, Reagan?
Did it hit?
It did hit.
I don't know. Did it?
It did. Kelsey was second, I believe. Yeah, Amon-Ra had the highest receiving yards this weekend.
I'll be the judge of that.
Yeah, I'm pretty and Jared Goff was in the leader in the clubhouse, but Stafford passed him by like 11 yards. So I almost hit Goff and Amon-Ra because I hit Barkley too as the leading rusher. I know it's super chalk, but
yeah,
I almost went 3 for 3 on that question.
Flowers. I will give you your flowers on St. Brown. Barkley, like you did a coin flip. Like I was just trying to get cute with it just to give a different perspective, but we know it was Henry Barkley.
I know.
Strike your cock more.
Yeah. Okay.
But yes, you were right. I will give you your flowers on St. Brown. That was a nice call. Barkley, good job on your coin flip, and Goff would have been a nice one too.
Yeah, but he fell to Stafford. But yeah, I mean for the Commanders, De'Ami Brown 98, Terry McLaurin 87 and a touchdown. That touchdown was sick, 58 yards, took the screen. Oh man, I was pumped when that happened. I had a nice little parlay that did not hit, but that was big for it at the time. So very excited. Terry's a dog. Zach Ertz, of course, the corpse, scored a touchdown too. Good to see. For the Lions, I mean, Goff threw for 313 and a touchdown, but the turnovers were really bad. The pick 6 was disgustingly bad. The other 2 picks were also fucking awful. Jameson Williams, what are you thinking, dude? Throw the ball out of bounds on that stupid trick play. Like, the Lions had the best trick plays of any team, right? It worked out so well from all year.
Well,
it just wasn't there. How does Jameson
David
Williams
Montgomery
not know to throw that out?
Cool. That David Montgomery
the Monty one
play
was cool too. Yeah, 20 passing yards for David Montgomery.
Yeah. And I will. Overall, I mean, I thought the Commanders could win. I did not think they would win in that fashion.
Dude, it was a shock. It's like the Lions couldn't get out of a hole. Every time they scored, the Commanders would fire right back.
Yeah, and as a Jet fan, I will say, I'm blaming that Lions loss completely on the offense. The defense was fine. Aaron Glenn is a very, very good coach, and any team would be lucky to have him. Now, jokes aside, but we'll talk about that more on Wednesday when that news breaks. But yeah, I mean, it's just tough. I kind of feel for Detroit fans. I kind of don't because I go through the same pain as them. So I'm like, you know what? I'm still in pain. So screw you guys. I don't want to see you guys happy. As a Jet fan, I'm not happy. So seeing another team go through it and having success, so it's kind of humbling in that sense. For the Commander side of things, happy for our, one of our boys, Walmart. Dude was hyping them up. I mean, we did not give them their flowers. I haven't made a video saying, like, I don't understand these moves they're making. I didn't think the team would compete right away. And I was like, bringing in guys like Bobby Wagner, Austin Eckler, some of those other big names that are older. I was like, Zach Ertz, I don't understand it. And guess what? They've all been impactful guys. I mean, Austin Eckler was a second-team All-Pro as a kick returner. So it's not like, as a running back, but he's showing that he still has some juice in the tank as well. Obviously, Bobby's been a beast. Zach Ertz had a big touchdown. So those veterans they brought in that I was shitting on, got to give them their credit. And I was talking to, Mr. Caleb, the around the bases guy. He has a nice little future on the Commanders. He sniped him at plus 4,400. So, that is a sick future that he bought in early. I know he did a little reel when he was helping us out a little bit on the Commanders' success early on. So had a few people that have been on that train. So I'm just happy I hopped on last week. And, I'll hop off this week because the Eagles are my team for the rest of this playoffs. But, that is a team I'll be okay with. And it would be quite the story. And honestly, for the Commanders, you could ask them, like, what was the biggest turnaround? And I feel like you could hear a lot of different answers. But ultimately, I would say the biggest thing is Dan Snyder selling the team and Josh Harris taking over.
Yes, dude.
You can say, oh, well, it was Jaden or, oh, it was Dan Quinn. But if Dan Snyder's still there probably is no Dan Quinn, and there might not even be a Jaden Daniels. So I think it ultimately comes down to that. And also, I saw a stat today because Josh Harris also does own the Sixers and the Devils. And I guess this is the first time any of his teams that he's owned has made a conference championship. So I found that kind of interesting because he's owned the Devils and the Sixers for a long time. But it's even more interesting. He owns the Sixers and he also owns the Commanders. So that's quite interesting that, that's the championship game right now.
I know. It is. It certainly
isn't that crazy that, if the Eagles are to lose, everyone's going to be like, fuck Josh Harris. But it's like he's still the owner of the Sixers who, a lot of people love in that city. Just so weird. And I feel like many people don't know that. Why would you think that? But that's definitely something that people don't realize. That'll probably be the biggest storyline being pushed around this week. But very funny.
Yeah, valid point. Jahmyr Gibbs looked really good in this game, though. He had 14 for 105 and 2 touchdowns. Also added 70 through the air. What were your thoughts on Montgomery's role? He had 7 for 28, and I thought it was pretty telling early on that it was going to be the Gibbs show when Montgomery got a carry down to the 2-yard line or the 1-yard line, and they swapped him out and put Gibbs in, and Gibbs got the touchdown. Usually it's the other way, at least way earlier in the season, right? Yeah. That was Montgomery's role, and you'd see Gibbs get pulled if you took Gibbs anytime. I thought that was interesting. I mean, obviously nursing the knee, but with how good Gibbs looked down the stretch here, and I know you want to keep those two guys together, but do you keep the same cadence next year? I know it worked so well all season.
They just gave him the extension, so you would think
I know.
They would.
But I think you should. Are you going to start Montgomery still? Are you still going to have that 50-50 workload, or is it going to kind of be Gibbs 1, 60-40?
No, I would completely keep it 50-50. Clearly it worked. Gibbs has looked like one of the most fresh backs in football, and you're saving him. You're getting so much longer out of your investment in him. So I think you should do it. I think the fact that they gave Montgomery the money, I think more teams should do it. I look back to it, and a lot of people probably don't remember it because I really don't remember it. We only saw a little bit of it. You look at Sean Alexander back when he was on the Seahawks back in 2006, 2007.
Cover
he
had
one of the craziest. Yeah, he was a dog for 2 years, but they ran him to the freaking ground. I mean, he looked like Gibbs does now. So yeah, it was great, but his shelf life or his peak was so short-lived because they just ran him into the ground for 2 years. And you see a lot of guys like that where they run him into the ground and they try to overuse him. So I think if the Lions can preserve him, you'll probably get, his whole rookie year, all 5 years, have some good stuff. But you'll actually be willing to give him a nice second contract because he doesn't have the wear and tear that a lot of these bell cows have. So I wouldn't run him into the ground. I think exactly how you're doing it.
And those bell cows that do have the wear and tear, it's a guy like Derrick Henry that's 6'4", 250 pounds, or Saquon Barkley that's 230. They're much bigger backs than Gibbs.
But even Saquon, I mean, he only this is one of the first years he's ever actually been able to stay healthy all year too. So it's even he's dealt with injuries, so people could be like, oh, well, Saquon this year, but you could have said the same thing last year about McCaffrey. Look how it worked out. So,
yeah,
he obviously was dealing with injuries all year. Yeah. So that to me, it's just you look at all these bell cows, and outside of Derrick Henry, it's pretty much I guess Zeke Elliott for a while. He, those two were the ones that were always getting a ton of workload, staying healthy. A lot of these guys deal with injuries and miss a year or two. So I would keep it how it is to preserve him for the long run. Sorry,
I like that point.
Football players.
Yeah, I know. Jahmyr Gibbs. If Jahmyr Gibbs got the full workload, Jesus Christ, this guy would not even be the roof. It'd be Mars, like Donald Trump said today. We're going to Mars. So, all right. The Eagles take care of the Rams 28-22. This was a battle. It was certainly a battle. The Eagles had to outscore the Rams in this fourth quarter, and then the Rams had a chance to win it at the end, and their Philly's defense held up. You got to tip the cap to Matthew Stafford, threw for 324 and 2 touchdowns against the number 1 passing defense in football this year. That was good to see. Kyrie Williams, 19 for 106. He had a couple of big runs, including a long of 30. Did not get in the end zone, though. Very unlike Kyrie Williams. Puka, 6 for 97, just doing what Puka does. DeMarcus Robinson, 3 for 74. Tyler Higbee, 7 for 54 and a touchdown. I know he only had like 4 or 5 games this year, but, that's a positive going to next year for the Rams that Higbee looks fully healthy. Cooper Kupp, 5 for 61, came alive a little bit in the end of that game. He was kind of quiet in the first half, but, still a lost fumble by Stafford, a lost fumble by Kyren Williams. Really, really bit this team in the ass, Reagan.
Yeah, the weather obviously, played a major factor, especially in that second half. Even the kicking game, I had the wrong game that kicking would affect, but Jake Elliott got to go if you're the Eagles.
I think it's time he's
somehow
done, right? He missed 2 extra points.
So yeah, somehow I feel like, if they are to lose a game, whether it's the championship or the Super Bowl, he will be a big reason behind the fact that they lost it. So he is going to be potentially public enemy number 1 in Philadelphia. But yeah, on the Eagles side of things, Jalen Hurts looked good, but the fact that he got injured, that's a little scary, if he is to miss next week because he's not 100%. I guess I think even 50% you're taking him over McKee or Pickett,
Yeah,
but
he's
definitely
playing.
would.
But hey, he got sacked 7 times, Reagan. 7 times is a lot for Jalen Hurts, a quarterback that can move, and especially this offensive line. The Rams were like, there's no way they're going to replicate what they did last week where they had 9 sacks. They came pretty damn close here.
Yeah, and I would say a lot of that probably had to deal with the weather and the lack of mobility because that safety he took, you saw he was hobbled in the snow and he just was like, didn't even try to take off. He just took the sack. But that at the end of the day was probably the smart move to just take the sack there versus trying to make something there because, that weather was bad. And the fact that the Rams almost won at the end was crazy. Puka had that incredible catch in the snow.
Oh, my God. That was awesome.
And even Kyren, bad fumble, but he looked good to me the majority of the game. The Rams defense, needs to be given credit. And I think next year, they're going to be a very popular pick for defenses in fantasy football after this sack input. Because I believe 16 sacks is one of the highest ever in a playoff run. And it's funny because that's in 2 games. That I don't know for certain, but that might be the most sacks in a 2-game span in the playoffs, if I had to guess, because that's incredible, that many sacks. And it just speaks to the fact all those young guys that they hit on. It's so rare to hit on that many young guys. But if I'm the Rams, if I'm Stafford, I'm McVay, I'm like, let's run it back. The defense looks legit. Offensively, maybe you get another offensive lineman in there. I maybe get another weapon in there. I don't know. Kyren, Puka, and Kupp are pretty nice trio there. And even Higbee, you saw him being healthy, how nice of another wrinkle or add-on he's been to the offense in the 2 playoff games. He's definitely been a nice add-on that they were kind of missing with Parkinson and Davis Allen early in the year. So that was nice. But for the Rams, hey, you won the division, and right now the way that division looks like, they would be my front runner to come out of it next year. And Eagles, get healthy. The O-line needs to step up bigger going forward. With all those all-pros and even Mekhi Becton having kind of a resurgence, you can't be allowing that many sacks. And I will give a little bit of a pass because of Hurts getting injured in the weather, but still, you're not the Houston Texans offensive line. You're not the New York Jets offensive line. You're not the New York Giants offensive line. You're not the Carolina Panthers O-line. You're considered the top unit in football, if not number 2 behind the Detroit Lions.
100%. They did their thing in the run game, though. The Eagles ran for 285 total yards on 34 carries. Kenneth Gainwell had 1 for 10. Jalen Hurts 7 for 70 and a touchdown. Saquon Barkley 26 for 205 and 2 touchdowns. Saquon said after the game they were going for 300. They're a little pissed they came up short. I think the Commanders have to be awfully scared of this Philly rushing attack next week. Saquon gashed him both times they played this year. He's always done well against the Commanders. The Commanders' run defense is their weakness, right? Mm-hmm. I could see a similar script, similar box score for the Eagles going to next week. You look at what they did receiving-wise. A.J. Brown, 2 for 14. Devontae Smith, 4 for 21. Those are 2 star number 1 wide receivers absent from the game plan. Saquon, 4 for 27. Dallas Goedert, 4 for 56. They're going to run the fucking ball. They're going to run the ball down the Commanders, down their throat next week. And that's going to be their game plan.
Yeah. As they should, but that's the thing, too. The Eagles got this done without using Smith or Brown.
It's scary because what if they
scary.
if they need to, like if Hurts makes the throws and teams are going to load up and stack the box against Barkley next week. I mean, you got 2 number ones out wide. You can't go man coverage and AJ Brown all day.
And that's the thing. He can make those throws. They just don't need him to. Like people that like, oh, Hurts isn't a good quarterback. Why? Well, you don't need him to be a good quarterback. If you can run the ball down teams' throats, why force him into being like putting up crazy numbers if you don't need him to? Like I said it earlier in the year. The Eagles have been their most scariest and successful when they're not trying to make Jalen Hurts this elite quarterback that's throwing the ball 40 times a game. And you saw last year, the reason they fell apart was, yes, that defense, but also because they tried to make Jalen Hurts into somebody he's not. They went back to the ways of their 2022 season where it was a run-first team, and then let Jalen Hurts use his legs and then keep the passing under like 25 attempts a game. They've gone back to that, and the success has come back, as well as the defense obviously getting better. But those are the 2 key things for their success this year. And also on the Detroit side of things, they had 8.7 per carry against Washington, and they were trailing most of the game. So if that's a positive game script, it could have got way worse. Like, I mean, over 200 rushing yards for the Lions on 23 carries is crazy. So, that is definitely scary if you're Washington fans going into this game is, hey, our run defense did that bad, and we were, in control pretty much all the game.
Yeah, and that Philly defense is on a different level than that Detroit defense right now. I mean, that's just a fact. That's just You could argue Detroit fully healthy, that Eagles defense is better. Detroit's defense was not even fully healthy. So it's going to have to be another Jaden Daniels masterclass here. I don't think you're going to have the same. I mean, we've seen Hurts make mistakes in the postseason before, but the recipe they're using right now, you're minimizing the chance that that's going to happen significantly if you just keep the ball in Barkley's hands on the ground. And hey, Hurts had the first touchdown of the game from 40 yards out using his legs on a design run. You know what I mean? So use Jalen Hurts more like that. Throw the ball less than 25 times against the Commanders, and I think it's going to be tough for the Commies to get another upset.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, he might not be using his legs too much, but
I know with the knee now. The knee's a little banged up. I don't know. It's going to be another 30 carries for Barkley, I'd imagine. But all right, let's move back to the AFC here, Reagan. The game of the weekend. The Bills take care of business 27-25. They're now 10-0. No, 9-0. 9-0 at home this year. They only had 8 home games regular season, not 9. But there you go. No, they won the first round. I'm an idiot. They are 10-0. 10-0 at home. 10-0 at home. Josh Allen talked about earlier. Only threw for $127, 16-22. Very close to Jalen Hurts' stat line. Was only sacked once, so that's the recipe for Buffalo. Keep that going. You got a tough test with Kansas City, though, this weekend. James Cook, 17 for 67. It's solid. Josh Allen just spread the ball around. Khalil Shakir, 6 for 67. Other than that, their next highest receiver is 15 yards. So not a lot on the offensive side of the ball. Lamar Jackson threw for 254, 2 touchdowns, a pick. He added 39 yards on the ground. Did not have a single designed quarterback run, like a sweep or a QB draw. It was all scrambles for Lamar, which was interesting. And a lot of people are bringing up what happened last year, where they fell short in the postseason in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs, where they ultimately abandoned the run and just threw the ball the entire game, and it's not what got them there. Yeah, Lamar was so good as a passer this year. Interesting, though, he wasn't used more as a runner in this one against Buffalo. But Derrick Henry had 16 for 84 and a touchdown. Isaiah Likely had a touchdown. Rashad Bateman had a touchdown. They both had nice games. Andrews had 61 yards. Of course, the fumble, though. The drop 2. Bit him in the ass. It was the turnovers, though, for Baltimore. The bad Lamar pick. The bad fumble. We touched on it earlier. Baltimore falls short yet again, man. What's going to take for this team to get over the hump? And what are your thoughts on this game?
My first thoughts are that, for those of you who are blaming Mark Andrew, casual. I mean, this game, if I'm pointing the finger at anyone, it's on Lamar, and everyone's like, oh, he played so good in the second half. Yeah, I mean, half the reason he played so good was because Buffalo was kind of like, hey, let's take our foot off the gas pedal. Like, we're in control here. We'll let him, get what he wants and play this prevent style defense. And yeah, you could be like, well, if they get that conversion, it's tied. I think Buffalo goes right down. Josh Allen's too good to not set them up for a field goal attempt, which maybe Tyler Bass misses. I know kicking would decide the game. It did not. And on the Buffalo side of things, I was impressed, especially by that defense. I mean, it was pretty clear, and it's been a big reason why I've brought up Matt Milano's name so much, but his impact on this game, like, to me, he was the MVP of that game. He was all over the place making the stops. And even when he wasn't making the tackles, he was just
causing so much havoc on those running backs, and whether it was Derrick Henry or Justice Hill in pass protection, where he was just making Lamar scramble uncomfortable. So, that is definitely something that Buffalo was missing out early on in the year, and I think he will be the X factor for them when it comes to that game against Mahomes. I mean, he's going to be the guy that you're probably putting on the spies on Mahomes, trying to keep him in the pocket, not letting him get out of there. And he's a guy that may match up with Kelsey a lot. And I'm sure they'll have Teron Johnson on him a lot, but it'll be interesting. But that's what really impressed me. And I don't know what to expect in that AFC Championship game, but hey, Bills got it done. Bills got it done.
Did.
You don't. It's still crazy to me that Vegas had them as underdogs in that game. Yeah, that was my thought process. Like, it's essentially a pick 'em, but I'm like, you know what, dude? It's in Buffalo. They have not lost in Buffalo all year. And yeah, on paper, I do think the Ravens were a better team, but it's just so tough to go beat Josh Allen and that team in Buffalo, dude. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go with the Bills. I'm going to take Buffalo. I'm going to stand by it. They got it done, man. And it was a great game. A 2-point game is what you'd expect. You flip that spread the other way. It should have been Buffalo -1, I think. They were the home team, and, Vegas is right on it. But
well,
no.
It also tells you, like, if the game was in Baltimore, the Ravens would have been almost a touchdown favorite. No, they would have been. They would have been 7-point favorites if it was in Baltimore.
Because you get 3 points for being the home team. No, 4.
Yes.
No, 4.
If it's neutral, it would have been 4. It's 3 for neutral, and it's another 3 at home. They would have been 4-point favorites if it was a neutral site. They would have been 7-point favorites if it was in Baltimore. Dave?
That's crazy to me.
I was just going to jump in. I was trying to fact check that the other day when you said in the pod. And yes, to your point, it should be like that. But I don't know if it necessarily plays in a factor for like playoff games and shit like that. You know what I'm saying?
Everyone would have fucking hammered Bills +7. That line would have line would have moved down very quickly.
Going off of the math, it would have been. But I agree with you. Probably it does come to be situational at times.
I think regular season games, yeah. I think that's kind of how sports books would typically draw up the lines, but with playoff games and other factors, I don't know. It does sound ridiculous, right? The Bills plus what was it? What would it have been? 7, right?
No, I mean,
yes,
it's a lot.
But I guess it's also like the money. Where the money's coming in is what drives the line one way or the other.
Yeah,
I guess looking at it, the line. Oh no, I'm sorry. The line opened as Buffalo as 1-point favorite. So with that being the case,
that means
Baltimore
would
have been opened at 5-point favorites, which still is substantial.
Yeah, 5 points with these two caliber of teams would have been substantial. I would have hammered Buffalo.
It just means all the money was coming in on Baltimore. That's all that means.
Yeah. But hey, we got a Chiefs-Bills rematch, man. Whew.
We do. And then the Ravens side of things, I mean, you have to run it back again. I mean, I guess their biggest thing would be, getting another wide receiver in there. I mean, it's definitely evident, and they missed Zay Flowers in this one. And Bateman, I shouldn't have disrespected him. I was giving him a little bit of disrespect when, talking about these cores. But honestly, like, this is his breakout year, so you'd hope that he can repeat it next year. I mean, he had a lot of touchdowns this year, but that does hurt you, going in with him as your number one wide receiver. So that would be my biggest things. I mean, defensively, Baltimore's still very good because they really did. I mean, they shut Buffalo down in the second half. It really just came down to them losing the turnover battle 3-0.
Yeah, and Buffalo won this game with Keon Coleman having 1 catch for 5 yards and Amari Cooper giving you a goose egg.
Yeah.
The receiver that you took the first pick of the second round and your big trade deadline acquisition, you didn't even use him.
Well, Shakir is the one. I mean, he actually is very nice. And
that's the even 7, yeah.
And he cooked Humphreys, the slot corner, who was the second team All-Pro too. So that's also impressive. So Shakir's a very, very underrated player.
Yeah, Shakir's solid for sure.
Shakira.
All right, that wraps up our recap, Reagan. Any last words from you, man? We got a big prediction pod this upcoming week. Only 2 games, so we need more questions out of you guys coming up in this next pod. Help fill some time. We love chopping it up, the opportunities that we get.
Yeah, please submit questions. I mean, they don't even have to be related to the playoff game. Like, we love, they could be NFL draft questions. They could be anything. It doesn't have to be about the 2 games coming up. Just anything to spark some debate or just to get an opinion on it. I mean, hey, man, I'm happy to give out dynasty advice for your dynasty leagues. I mean, let's not forget. I mean, I play in a league with Dave and Colin, and I've won the past 2 years, so I'm very knowledgeable when it comes to that stuff. And I'm a guy who went from being a rebuilding team. I mean, you could call me the Washington Commanders, the route I took, or you could call me the.
How
Kansas
do we get on
City
this
Chiefs.
tangent, dude? How do we get
I'm
on
just
this tangent to
basically
close the
saying
pod?
that.
What the hell are we doing here? You're just blabbering, bro. Just stroking your own chain. Like, let's. We're trying to close out the pod here. Follow the breadcrumbs, dude. Follow the breadcrumbs. I'm trying to get close out the pod, and you're just spieling about your bullshit.
Salty dog. I said follow the breadcrumbs, not give me the salt, brother. But yeah, so the questions could be about anything because, like I said earlier, obviously I've won my dynasty league.
What gives a shit? Keep submitting questions.
I had to do it.
Support the boys. We love you guys for listening. Like and subscribe. We'll catch you later this week for the fucking championship weekend predictions.